Welcome to My Financial Coach Live.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today at My Financial Coach Live. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Kaylin back on our program. One of the things that we had wanted to explore, especially as our viewers are interested in the changes that happen in the financial services industry, are new ways of thinking, whether that's in investment management, insurances, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and let Kaylin reintroduce herself, and then from there we'll go right into our topic.
Great. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Kaylin Dillon, and I'm a financial planner and investment manager. As Enpo said, I will be helping some of the My Financial Coach clients with their investing needs. I love financial planning and consider myself someone who's financial planning forward. And for the My Financial Coach clients who already have that area covered, I'm really excited to just in the cases where people need it, be able to provide investment management. I have a lot of experience investing. I started at Morgan Stanley in 2012, where I was a financial advisor and portfolio manager. I have always had a strong belief based on research that investing should be relatively simple and straightforward, that a diversified portfolio doesn't have to be complex or confusing. And I have an approach that primarily focuses on using low-cost passive index funds. I also really believe that not everybody has to hire an investment manager. Because a lot of people don't need a complex investment strategy, it is the case that a lot of people can handle managing their portfolios themselves, but there are a lot of good reasons that people do want to hire help. And so I really love providing that service for people when it's appropriate.
Just looking into what you've shared with me, it sounds very much similar to the philosophy coming out of the XY Planning Network, which you are a part of. Could you kind of flesh out what the XY Planning Network is, some of the core beliefs there, and how you found yourself kind of attracted to this website and kind of their methodology?
Yeah. So the main philosophy for the XY Planning Network is that financial planners and financial advisors should be fee only. So we all are fee only. And what that means is that we don't, none of the money that we make comes from the investment recommendations that we make. It helps align the client's needs with our interests as well. So we aren't recommending, say, a certain type of investment that is also going to pay us additional money. All of our fees come straight from our clients directly. And usually, just in effect, what happens when you don't make money from the investments you recommend is that you are primarily investing in and recommending simpler portfolios, lower cost investments, and shying away from some of the things that maybe other advisors use as an income source.
So building on top of that, then, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that different investment advisors, broker dealers have set up their businesses. For yourself, you've kind of put that line in the sand of, okay, I want to focus on fee for service. And a lot of RIAs have done that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Granted, today is, call it September 6th, 2024. So maybe in the future, these fees could change even more. But what do you think and what do you see in the marketplace as the prevailing business models and costs? And what is the differentiator between what you're trying to do and what you've seen in the marketplace? Just so our listeners can kind of get that insight.
Yeah, most advisors charge 1% of the value of the assets that they're managing on an annual basis. It has kind of just become a default trend for advisors. I think part of that is because it's just an easy number and it sounds simple. But I think my personal opinion is that it's really become detached from the rationale, like where's the logic behind the actual amount that you're charging. And so one of the arguments for charging 1% is that, well, as clients have more money that you're managing, you're doing more work, or it's more complex, there's more complexity, or you're taking on more liability. And so those should be tied. I really don't think that there's a 1-for-1 correlation there. And so I'm just like no longer interested in trying to defend that 1%. I agree that it doesn't really make sense. And yeah, so I have a minimum that I charge. I mean, do you want me to get into specifically what I charge for managing assets?
I mean, if you don't mind, kind of the philosophy, you don't have to go with specific percentages or what have you, but maybe the underlying philosophy for XY planning.
Yeah. Well, most of the XY planning network advisors are charging either a totally flat fee or just something that is different than 1%. So sometimes that means it's some sort of percentage based on net worth. So it's no longer based on specifically the assets under management. I use kind of a quasi flat fee approach. So most of the fees that in that network are kind of in that ballpark, because I do like the idea of having just a flat fee. And so I've structured my fees to just kind of get closer to that flat fee approach.
I think there's oftentimes a defense in the industry of, well, you pay a fee, but you get a commensurate, if not greater, amount of service. And I think earlier you're kind of questioning that. Well, is that really what's happening? Lots of information out there, maybe not saying that. But at the same time, there is a trend, instead of trying to perhaps lower fees, to add more services as part of the percentage. What do you think on that?
Okay, so and I just want to say I'm happy to talk about my specific fee. It's just that it will change over time. One thing that is important to me, though, is that it's always clear. So I do always have it right on my website. So whenever you're listening to this, that is something that people can go and see. But I do think there's like some validity in the argument that the more you're paying, the better service you get. But it's only to a very small extent. And that is that, yeah, if you have more invested with me, then potentially you have more accounts. Potentially we're doing a little more planning, like estimating your taxes for the next year, making sure we have that next quarterly tax payment earmarked. And maybe we're doing some more tax loss harvesting. It varies from client to client. But yes, maybe there's a little more work when there's more money, but it's not way more work. And at a certain point, it does kind of reach a ceiling. And so I have a cap on my client investment management fee, because at a certain point, there isn't really more work managing the money than, a large amount of money versus a small amount. So that's one of the reasons I have that cap. I do hear a lot of advisors that I'm not sure they set out to put themselves in that position, but once you're charging a high enough number in terms of dollars, I do think people feel like they have to justify it. And so they say, well, but I do this and I'm that for you. I remember when I was at Morgan Stanley, one time we had a client call us, actually more than once, like to remind them what is their child's social security number. And it was like, stepping into the world of like personal assistant services. And I've heard advisors talk about examples like that where they feel like they're adding value, but I would rather just say, okay, here are my services. That's all I'm providing, but you get to know up front exactly what it includes. And I'm not planning to go above and beyond that. And so there's no reason for me to charge an unlimited amount. I'll have a cap. There's also a cap on my services. And yeah, it means I'm not going to like leave the birthday party to help you find that social security number if you call me on a weekend. Things like that.
And I think that that brings up another point. The XY Planning Network, to a certain extent, my understanding is it's sort of a lifestyle focused business as opposed to necessarily that unlimited growth. I'm going to go out there and recruit. Could you maybe speak to that portion of it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like, I don't want to speak for the network, but it
Sure.
definitely tends to like self-filter for those types of planners who, like me, say, I love what I'm doing. I want to be well compensated for what I'm doing, but I don't want to be compensated at the expense of my life or well-being, or at the expense of really enjoying what I'm doing and working with people who love working with me. So there is kind of there's definitely a different approach and a different spirit of how we work.
Sure. So let's kind of go traditionally into how a business might grow. If you're in a traditional advisory practice, you might have, you know, when you first start, you take all clients, and then eventually you stratify them into A, B, C, D clients.
Yeah.
You start getting too busy. You maybe, let's say, are serving 400 families. You go, well, I can't answer all these emails. You bring on a junior advisor. You take your C and D clients, you move it over to them, and then you continue to grow your practice that way.
You
That
nailed it.
is yeah. So how is that any different from what you plan to do?
Yeah, I just don't plan to do that. I really want to provide the same service to all of my clients. I don't want to have to remember who was an A or C client, and it makes it easy for me to, like, when I'm getting ready for a meeting, I know exactly what my approach is because it's the same every time, and I don't have to think. It's like a lot less work on my end because I don't have to think about, like, what is this client expecting? Because in theory, if I have done my job right, I've communicated my services well, then everybody should be getting the same service and have similar expectations.
So I think that one of the things that the financial services industry has done in recent past has been to compete horizontally as opposed to vertically, where now you have a Merrill Lynch advisor potentially selling life insurance and a New York life advisor selling investments. So for you, it sounds as if you're very much focused on competing vertically. What would you say the competitors are in the XY planning space? Are you drawing kind of your focus away from your traditional big box, low cost, such as your Vanguards of the world, Charles Schwab's, except they want accelerated service? Or is it maybe more of a Morgan Stanley, but less expensive? Or are you seeing a blend of all these?
If anything, maybe more the former than the latter. I would say it's more, a lot of my clients are people who are perfectly capable of managing an investment account, or they in theory would be comfortable with a robo advisor in theory because they like the idea of a pretty simple low cost portfolio with regular rebalancing, and they're not looking for stock picking or something like that. They've usually reached a point where some aspect of their financial life has become complicated enough, and they're busy professionals, and they realize, like, I could just use some help, or I could use a second set of eyes on this. And but you also don't want to pay 1% when you could be doing this yourself. You just need some help. And so um that tends to be the clients that I work with and work best with. They have a pretty good understanding of the value of the service they're getting. I don't have some I'm not selling like some fancy strategy to beat the market. I'm sharing all the information along the way about everything that I'm doing. It's just that I can take some of that workload and that mental weight off of their plate. Also take off some of the liability of remembering to rebalance or remembering to actually invest the funds or complete the Roth conversion, like whatever the steps are that are part of their plan. We all get busy, and having someone who's managing your investments just make sure all the steps actually get taken is valuable to some people. And some people, just like with like working out, like some people want to pay the trainer to make sure they show up, make sure the work gets done. And some people are perfectly happy finding free online videos for designing their own workout. They'll do it at home and they're disciplined about it. And those people are still doing a great job and probably would make good like DIY investors. And some people just are busy and want to hire help.
Sure, and I think it goes back into, well, who are the people then that could benefit? You're saying, hey, if you're busy, you're a professional, but looking into perhaps the more academic side of investment management, there is a known advisor alpha from all the things that you're saying. Of course, the irony being that technically anyone with time could do it. Traditionally, advisors have done that for their clients and they've done it better. I would argue perhaps that some investment advisors do tend, especially if their clients have taxable accounts, can make an argument for, hey, I'm going to arrange your assets in a way where you're taking full advantage of where those assets are.
Yeah.
Is there any other perhaps secret sauce that's maybe not so secret, just very labor intensive?
Asset location is one of them. Tax loss harvesting can be one of them if it's appropriate for that client. The discipline of regular rebalancing is really important. So if somebody's not actually going to get that done, then it would be better to have an advisor. And just taking the emotions out of the decisions. So you get a large bonus payout in February. You knew your plan was to invest it, but the market's been all over the place. And then you start thinking like, oh, is this actually a good day to invest it, or should I wait till tomorrow? Like those are the questions that it's hard to avoid when you're an individual investor investing your own cash. And people just second guess themselves and do get a little more emotional. Whereas if an advisor is managing that money, you can take some of the emotion out of those decisions, make sure that you're following best practices and following what research says you should do, which is not try to time the market.
Absolutely. I think, there's one. So we work with a lot of physicians here at My Financial Coach, and often we know that a lot of our primary care physicians, they give great advice to their clients, their patients, so to speak, and a lot of the times their patients know, hey, yeah, I should probably drink more water. I should probably exercise more. It's in the doing that the difficulty lies. And I think our clients hypothetically could do all of these things.
Right.
But often when it comes to the doing, it's just there's a million and one other things rather than to log into an account and make trades. So I appreciate your time, Kaylin. If there's any other final thoughts that you had for us about either the XY Planning Network or on your investment philosophy, love to hear your closing thoughts.
I think we really covered it. I would just say my best advice is this is like with anything in life, like don't worry so much about what your friend said or what that one article said that doesn't actually describe what specific life situation that piece of advice is for. Like really just be your own measure, stay focused on your specific situation, and that should help guide people to decide what is appropriate. Like do I need extra help in this area or not? Could I use investing help? Yeah, that sort of thing. Like, be your own gauge. And if you need help getting a gauge, then you should hire a financial coach.
Thank you for the plug, Kaylin. We appreciate you having you on the program again, and looking forward to the next time we chat.
Me too. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.